Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to do another live here for the the German Tarot Association. And I'm sitting next to Emily Carding from Britain. Hi, Emily.
Hello, how lovely to see you again.
Yes, we met for the first time in person in Manchester. But for me, you have been always somebody I really wanted to talk to because I really love your tarot art.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, well, you're welcome. And I also always found it very interesting that you're not only doing oracle, but work with magic in general and are an actor. Do I say in English actor or actress? I'm not
I
sure.
prefer actor.
Actor,
Yeah,
okay.
either is correct. I prefer actor.
Yeah, I haven't
So,
understood the system in English yet, how it works these days, but actor is the neutral form, right?
yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yes, and you have been extremely busy during the past weeks since we met in
Oh my
Manchester.
gosh. Mm,
You just told,
yes, very busy.
yeah, and you just told me you have returned to your home just a few, no, just yesterday, basically.
Basically, yes. So it's really funny because I was doing the main job that I've been doing over the last few weeks was a street theatre job locally, and I thought, how lovely, a lovely local job, and it's rehearsing in the daytime, the performances are in the daytime. I'll be home in the evenings. I'll be able to work on other projects. I'll get so much done, and that's not how it worked. Uh, because it was actually quite tiring. And so even when I didn't have other things going on at the same time, and I was going out and doing, but we were doing like 3 shows a day or something. I just come back in and go, well, that's me done, and just eat and collapse. And I'm surrounded by various bits of dumped ADHD mayhem of like, I'll put that down on that surface and I'll deal with it later. So those shows went very well. And I was telling you before we came on air that I had 4 days off from that project, during which I went to Verona and did a performance of Richard III for Verona Shakespeare Fringe, which is part of the European Shakespeare Festival Network, which was lovely, obviously. I mean, that was great. And then I had 1 day in London doing all of the things with my partner who lives in London. I ended up staying in London that night, going straight to Eastbourne from London for our show on Saturday. Anyway,
Mhm.
basically, we've had shows Saturday and Sunday. That run finished yesterday. I've now got a week at home, a week and a little bit at home before the next run of Key of Dreams, which is an immersive, Lovecraftian immersive event that I do in
Wow.
Wales. And it's delightful to be home and, just relaxed for the first time in ages, but also I'm surrounded by my own debris a little bit. So,
Bit of chaos in your
given
home.
that, so today I've mostly napped. I've done a little bit of admin and I've napped and I've popped out, and then I'm chatting with you. And later on tonight, I'm chatting with somebody for a horror podcast, for a
A
horror movie
horror
podcast,
podcast. Okay.
because I'm in a horror movie that will eventually appear called
Okay.
Return to Silent Hill. So that's today, and then maybe tomorrow I will tidy some of
Well,
this.
horror is not really my genre, I have to say. But
Let's not talk about that now. We've got so much more to talk about.
exactly. But while you were talking about your acting, Richard the Third, is it something you did stage yourself? I think it's a one woman show only, is it?
One
Or
person show. Yeah, it is. And that one I've been touring with now for nearly 10 years.
wow.
So it will be on and off, obviously. I've done other things during that time. And obviously that was very much off over COVID. Um, but that's one that I sort of co-produced and co-created with my director, Kolbrun Bjornsikfusdottir, who's Icelandic, but we met at Exeter University when we were both doing postgraduate degrees in staging Shakespeare theatre. Called it an MA, I did an MFA. Same course, just the MFA is the same thing but twice, a bit longer dissertation. And we started making work immediately. And yeah, that was basically nearly 10 years ago. The idea with Richard III, a one person show, is that I play Richard and the audience play the other roles.
Oh God.
But it's really gentle audience participation. It's immersive. It's not humiliating, and it's really fun. And honestly, I think over this last year, it's always been a fun show, but I feel like this last year, it's almost like I've relaxed even more into it, and it's become very, very funny. I don't know whether maybe I've got funnier. I'm not sure. Or maybe people are laughing at me out of pity or something. I don't know, but
No, no, I
anyway,
don't
people
think
seem
so.
to be enjoying it and people are laughing a lot. And then if I'm really on it, I get them to cry at the end, which is my favorite thing because I'm evil. Um, so yeah, so that's Richard III, and it's been all over. Well, do you know what? It hasn't been to Germany yet, so I really can't say it's been all over the world. I still have some unconquered territory there, but it's been to lots of places.
And I was just thinking, you specialized in Shakespeare at university.
Well, yes, on my postgrad, which was recent. So I trained as an actor back in the 90s originally, and it was
Mhm.
always Shakespeare that made me want to go into acting. It was always that this pull, or this sort of resonance was always there from being very, very young, which doesn't tend to lead to one fitting in when everybody else is into
Mhm.
Bros or whatever. But yes, I was always very into Shakespeare, and trained originally in the 90s at a place called Bretton Hall, which is up north in Yorkshire. It doesn't exist in that form anymore. Spent a few years doing bits and bobs, including bits and bobs of Shakespeare, but never really amounted to much. Had a child, left, and then so me coming back to acting work after the 11 years, 11, 12 years, or whatever it was that I was not acting. During that time, I was making the tarot decks. I was writing the magical stuff, a lot of it, and essays for Avalonia books and things. All of that happened then.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of that happened then. And then, yeah, so the MFA in staging Shakespeare at Exeter University was 10 years ago. Oh, well, I finished 10 years ago, basically now. I was, it came up on Facebook memories that I just finished my dissertation like a few days ago, 10 years ago.
Wow, we are 10 years on Facebook already. It's
Oh, well, no,
crazy.
more than that, much more than that.
Pretty
It's,
crazy. No,
it's,
I was just thinking about Shakespeare because I looked a bit into Shakespeare and astrology because there are always astrological references in his place to in his place. But I also heard about the theory that he was perhaps knowing tarot and yeah, this just came up as a thought when you were chatting here. Um, but thinking of tarot, you said you kind of started to look into your own tarot decks when you were not acting, but you were doing tarot before that, right?
yeah, that's right. I think I started, I was certainly reading tarot for people at drama school, and was already familiar with it at that point. So I guess I started reading in earnest around the age of 18, something like that, 17, 18.
Hmm.
No, I was given my mum, who was interested in that as a teenager, but gave it up quite quickly after meeting my dad. We won't get into that. Gave me her copy of the Rider Waite Smith. which I didn't get on with, and I now that, but it was that particular deck actually that held. I don't want to get. Well, I mean, I'm sure I'm among friends here, but it was giving very negative readings. It was a very unpleasant energy just in this deck. There's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, nothing wrong with the Rider-Waite-Smith in itself, and
Mm.
I quite enjoy it now. But that wasn't the first deck that I read with. The first deck that I started to read with was John and Cashelyn Matthews' HalloQuest Arthurian,
Yeah, that
which is
sounds
a
like.
very unusual deck
Yeah, yeah,
uh, to start with because
yeah,
it's very, very non-traditional.
yeah.
But it was because I'd always loved Arthurian legend. That was
Mm-hmm.
something like Shakespeare. This was in my DNA, as I felt, in my bones. These stories. And the artwork, I thought, in HalloQuest, Miranda Gray, isn't it? Very,
Mm-hmm.
just spoke to me, just spoke to me. And I felt that these landscapes told stories so clearly. So for a long time, I was reading intuitively with those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say before I thoroughly learnt everything inside out. And I honestly think the process of creating my first deck was the process by which I learned it all thoroughly inside out.
The first deck was the transparent tarot, right? Or
And the
did it
first deck I
come before?
create that's the first deck, that's the first full deck that was published.
Ah,
But
okay.
actually the first deck that I created back in 2005, which is longer ago now than I would care to think about, was Tarot of the She.
Oh, I don't know this one. Is it still
Ha ha
available?
ha!
Do you have
It is
some
still available. Yes, it
on
is.
your table?
That's right.
Tarot
It's
of
right.
the
It's this
She.
one,
No.
Tarot of the She. Yeah.
Okay. I can't. Can you just take one card? Ah, okay. Oh, I've seen this. I have seen this. I think it's Moon, the black and.
I've been posting some of the, because I'm still selling off the original artwork for this to make
Okay.
a little bit of money between acting jobs. I'll hold it still as the world card.
Uh-huh.
Oh, here's the star card. Um,
Oh, it's lovely.
the light. This is a problem with all my decks. They're so shiny. Let's try and. There we go.
Wow. Oh, I like this one.
So this is a deck that, again, I mean, John Matthews, um, in a way, inspired, but very much directly inspired. So I was doing my foundations shamanic training with John back, to 2004, 2005, whatever it was. And he had then only very recently discovered a symbol called the Great Glyph of the She. So this is She, the Gaelic name for the fairy, or the Gaelic name for the fairy race, the Irish fairy race,
Mm-hmm.
Sidhe, as you'd see it written
Yeah,
down.
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and we did journey work with that symbol, traveling through the symbol into the other world. And and interestingly, a number of other people, but I received the distinct instruction to include the symbol in my artwork, to try and sort of, it's that increased distribution of this symbol or whatever, to get to build a bridge between worlds, if you like. And so Tarot of the She was born out of that. It was sure a tarot deck, traditional tarot structure, very again non-traditional imagery, and some non-traditional card names, and the suits are named differently. But it's a 78 card deck, same structure,
Mm-hmm.
same meanings. Um, but it's also very much a meditation tool. It's also very much there to act as a bridge between worlds, and a magical tool, and the little book that comes with it. It's a very small book that comes with it because I wanted to keep the cost down so people could afford it. This felt very much like a magical or spiritual mission on my part. This one was.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, in the book there's oracular messages from the cards that you can use in your own work and so forth. So that was actually the first one that I painted, but it was the third that was published.
Okay. So,
Although it was published in a majors only form by Adam McLean in Glasgow, who runs the Alchemy the Alchemy Bookshop, I want to say. Anyway, he's a wonderful alchemist and tarot art curator up in Glasgow, and he published it before it was finished, I think, as a majors only, which is only 100 copies out there. So
Uh-huh. Wow.
if
No,
anybody has them, they're
I,
probably worth
I, I,
something. I mean,
I think I saw some of the images online at some time, but I never knew it was your deck.
mm,
So
yeah,
the
very
transparent tarot,
different, isn't it,
yeah,
from
totally.
the one from the
That's what I was
transparent?
going to say. The second one then was the transparent tarot, or was
That's
there?
right.
And
Yeah,
how this is a total change. So how did you come up with this other idea?
it was
What?
pretty crazy. So I had finished painting Tarot of the She. I was in Scotland. I was. It was around New Year. Um, yeah, it was. It was around. It must have been around New Year 2006. I guess time. Who even knows what that is? Um, and I'd been thinking, oh, okay, great. I've done one deck. This is a thing that I do now. Let's do another deck. What would it be? And consciously, my thoughts were like, well, my goodness, is there a theme that hasn't been done? Even back then, I was like, everything's been done. What hasn't been done? I had no idea on a conscious level. And I woke up at 3 in the morning, that that muses time of night, that liminal time between night and day. I woke up, sat up, but this is no fabrication or elaboration or dramatization. I sat bolt upright in my bed with this idea fully formed in my head. Just, oh my God, a transparent tarot that you read in layers. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that hasn't been done. No, but at that point, I mean, it was 2006 or whatever it was. I didn't have access to the internet up in this lodge I was staying in Scotland. I had to wait until I got home to Google to see whether somebody else had done it or not. But I immediately started sketching things. And you've seen now, I've shown you a little bit of like, my usual art style, which
Yeah.
was like basically Tarot of the She. I was like, how many symbols can I cram into one card? It's very busy, it's very surreal, it's very. I mean, this is another of my wrong hand. This is another one of my paintings here behind me. That's more of my usual art style. Very symbolic, very surreal, very visionary art. And I knew that that wasn't going to cut it when it came to this idea. I was quite careful with the transparent tarot, this first transparent deck that I made, to make it very, very minimalist. And this technique of dots was something that I had remembered doing at school in one of my GCSE art projects. I was really, because I'd studied pointillism, and when I was at school doing art, I started doing these pictures with like felt tip dots. And I was like, what if I go back to that thing that I did when I was like 15 and 16, so that there's no like strong lines, these dots kind of all mingle.
Hmm. I remember
Then
that you had to do
obviously
this
once I got
exercise.
home, I searched and found out that it hadn't been done. And then it was just this feverish push to get it done and out there before, because I have this sense that ideas are floating around. We don't have ownership over ideas. They're just kind of out there waiting for you as a creative person or a receiver. And like maybe you'll pick up an idea, but if you don't do something with that idea, somebody else is going to get that idea will just be, like, I'm going to go elsewhere, I'm not wanted here.
Yeah.
So I was determined to get it out there before anybody else. So it's felt tip on paper, um, to calculate how images would overlap. I used just tracing paper and pencil, and plotted it all out around this quite simple geometry in this one. So you can see there you've got the sun and you've got the world cards there, and they are structured around that same circle in the same position in the card, which is slightly above center. So you can tell if one is reversed. So if you were to reverse one of those, you'd get a Vesica Piscis sort of effect. Yeah,
Ah. Ah. Okay. Yeah.
yeah. everything, all of the other cards. So the majors are all designed to relate to each other in a way that makes sense for the meaning and overlap in a way that makes sense for the meanings of those cards and to form a picture. The each of the suits are also designed to interact in a certain way, and each of the numbers of each of the suits are designed to form a particular pattern when they're all so those all interact in a way that makes sense, and they all have relationship with that same circle that you saw there in the sun and the world cards. And other than that, kind of do know. I mean, there are billions of combinations when you consider that not only can you have reversals, but you can also have a card that's flipped left to right, which is obviously something you can never normally have with tarot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So when you
amazing.
when you when you factor that in, there are billions of combinations. There was no way I could consciously plan for all of them to work in a conscious way, but I just trusted that the process of reading it would make sense. So if you have cards that are cluttered in a corner, there will be some element of your life that is similarly cluttered or frustrating or blocked, or you see. Um, so yes, so that's and then actually getting it published was very difficult because it was so different and more expensive to produce than a standard deck. And it was Schiffer Books at that time before Red Feather. It was only the second one that they published. They were very new to tarot publishing.
Yeah,
So all of the established publishers, and I won't name names, but they were all like, "No, we can't take a risk on this. No, it's too different." Blah 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 blah.
yeah.
There was one particular publisher. For those who know, if you know, you know. I don't need to name them. Who, after the Transparent Tarot became successful, did their own knockoff version, which is what it is. But yeah, but Schiffer Books, I'm very grateful to. We're now celebrating some sort of, I think it's 40 years or something. Anyway, they took a risk with it, partially because I think they didn't know what they were doing. They just went, oh, this is, but it was like, well, this is going to cost more, so we'll just charge more. And
Yeah.
so they published it, for which I'm immensely grateful. And they've published all my tarots since then, and they've gone on to publish so many more, which is wonderful. They now produce such beautiful quality decks. I've just talked non-stop, I think, for 10 minutes. So there you are.
I yes, I'm willing to say something as well.
Yeah, sorry. You just wind me up and let
No,
me
no,
go.
that's why we are here. People don't, people know me. They don't want to know about what I have to say, but what you have to say.
Sure they
Um,
do.
so you get a lot of appreciation in the comments, though, that people
A
really
lot
like
of them
that
are
you do
in
this dotting
German, so I'm
process
gonna,
because the colors get very well because of this dotting style. And Pascal says that the interaction of the cards is what's really intriguing. Um, and that's what I think as well. It's really
but
it's
that's it. I
so
mean, that's the
yeah,
point, really.
it's such
On
a
their
nice
own.
idea.
When I hand it over to somebody to play with for the first time, they put the cards all down individually and they go,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is great." I'm like, "No, no, 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 you've missed. You put them on top of each other.
yeah,
You've got other decks, for the individual cards, but the whole idea of this is that you either layer them like this, or you can do film strips with them,
yeah. And
or various other chaotic things, and it's all about the interaction and the mingling of the cards and what new thing
what
emerges from that.
what I really like to do with them, I
Yes,
managed
you can
is
speak. It's
thank you, Richard. So what I really like to do with these cards is if you have your soul number, like I have the 7, I can join it with the 16 uh, like this, and it gives me a totally new identity with the tarot cards. This is something I really appreciate about them. And yeah, I just think they are really fantastic. And they can be bought. They're not out of print, right?
No, no, they can be bought. So the second edition, I think we're on, is still very much out there. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But now, what I wanted to show people today mainly was the transparent oracle, which has is in its second edition, also at
Yes. That one, it did go out of print for a while, and people were trying to get hold of it, and now you can.
and
The second edition has been out for a couple of years, maybe. Yeah,
when
at
did
least.
you come up with this deck? Is it after the transparent tower, obviously?
Yeah, yeah. So what happened there was I still had the tarot of the she I was trying to get published, right? And so they did the transparent tarot,
Hmm.
and it was originally Peter Schiffer Senior was still around. It was him that I'd been talking to, and he said, "Well, great. If the transparent tarot does well, we'll publish Tarot of the She." And transparent tarot did do well. So, but then Peter Schiffer Senior passed away. And Pete Schiffer Jr., who is great, he's great. I came to him and I said, "So hey, so now Tarot of the She now, yes?" And he was like, "Well, you know what would be great would be another transparent deck." And I'm like, "Okay, well." And I explained, like Transparent Tarot came from this direct inspiration, and it was this whole thing. And I can't guarantee that that is going to happen again. I don't want to repeat myself. There's no point in doing another Transparent Tarot. So I was like, listen, I don't know that that's going to happen. 2 days later, I started thinking, but what if? What if I did an oracle deck, but it had this structure that, like, what if I brought all of my various diverse magical paths together in one place? So we have a shamanic influence, yeah, ritual magic, ceremonial magic, astrology. What if we have all of these things? What if the structure is seven directions? And so it started to come through. I was like, and what if it was round? So you could rotate it so it's not fixed to the same structure. And what if now, having seen how well the transparent layering works, what if I make the artwork just a little bit more elaborate, a little bit more aesthetic, use more colors, use more detail, make it something beautiful. Um, so that was the story there. I was like, okay, not only is it an oracle deck, it's also kind of a magical system. It's not your standard kind of oracle deck, which is here is however many cards with a theme, and you pull one card and that gives you a message. This is more complex, but if you are willing to invest the time in familiarizing yourself with that system, it will reap rewards. But also you can, and it's always been an interest of mine because of how I started to learn tarot, and because I want things to be accessible to people, that you can just read it intuitively and allow it to just say what you will. It will, of course, the idea is that you can place them at any angle you wish. However, the numbers at the bottom show you the way up it's designed to overlay. So you will have more beautiful, more symmetrical effects if you line them up with the numbers at the bottom all together.
So
That card is, so the numbers on the card go
down,
at the bottom of the card.
and yeah,
Yeah.
okay, like
Um,
this.
so of course you can rotate them, but I get a little bit twitchy when they are just chaotically put down, which is just me. But that's partially because I spent so much time on the geometry of this one, um, making sure that they formed beautiful patterns. Now the card that you have there underneath, that DNA map of the true self, that was one of the final cards of the original version of this deck. There's now some new cards as well. And the second one you put down there is one of the new cards, which is one
This
of the
one.
archetypes associated with.
Hmm.
So this one is, I think I called it the scholar or something, is the archetype of air.
So can we just get a bit structure in there? You said it's based on the seven directions. So which are the seven directions?
Sure. So most people who study tarot in particular, but everybody's familiar with the directions of north, south, east, and west. Now, if you study tarot or any of the magical arts or Western mystery tradition, you'll be aware that there are certain associations, correspondences with each of those directions. So, for example, in Western mystery tradition, on the whole, North corresponds with the element of earth, with the season of winter, um, with the time of day of night, etc., etc. And then there might be certain animals that are associated with that direction. So those four directions and a selection of correspondences are in this deck. Then you add to that above, below, and within. So above being the celestial realm, the planets, the angelic realm. Below being the ancestral realm, the land of the She, the underworld, and so forth, the Grail Hallows. And within is about how the self then connects to the world around us through the senses, through all of our senses, both physical and otherwise, and how we identify and resonate with the world. And those are, for the most part, except for the archetypes, which also have the face and the hands, those ones you will see because the lines on our hands obviously are unique and identify us as individuals. And so that's the basic structure.
Like this is an archetype here?
No, that's from the direction of within.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So the within cards have this and the archetypes that were a later edition. That was a later evolution of the deck for the second edition, which was after I'd gone back into acting. I was like, well, what new thing? Because for me, the transparent oracle has always been my system, my a version of hero is my system. This is how I work. And the thing that had changed in the years between the transparent oracle coming out and having the opportunity to do a second edition was that I was now a professional actor full time again. And so as an actor, I was like, well, this is, the archetypes are very important as an actor and as a magician. So that was the new thing that I brought to it. But the first card that you put down there from the direction of within is so that's the dream. Dream is one of the ways we interpret the world around us, how we connect to the world around us, how we manifest within the world around us. So you can see that's represented. So those cards from within, with the trickiest one conceptually is like, how do I portray, sight, hearing, all these different things in art. So you have these different energy lines coming out of the head or from the hands or whatever to portray different things.
Mm.
Then you've got on top of that, you've placed the warrior card, which is one of the archetypes, one of the new cards. That is the archetype from the element of fire.
I like
And then
this.
on top of that, you've got Otter, who is one of our animal guides for the direction of west and the element of water.
So there are 77 cards I learned in the second edition, and that
That's
means
right.
11 cards for each direction. And
That's
seven obviously is also a magical number, and you already talked about the directions. I was immediately thinking of the cubus, which is supposed to unfold at the beginning of the world,
right.
and us being inside this cubus. Or I was also thinking of a radix, and in the middle we do stand, and around us the directions, but also the depth of the sky and the height of the sky evolves, something like this. I really like that.
Yes, yes, entirely that. And this
Yeah.
places you really, we're all at the center of our own universe in a sense.
It was an interesting noise.
That was a siren. Hope everybody's okay. Um, so this basically places you at the center of your own web of connection. And it's not a deck that you would use like a tarot deck to say, hey, am I going to get that job next week? Or what steps can I take to do it? It's more like about what your energetic relationship is with the world, about how the patterns of the world are around you. Or it's a really lovely one to ask philosophical questions of just in general about, the nature of things, not only our relationship with things and the world and the universe, but also just, the the true sort of nature underneath it all. Um, it's a lovely one to use for meditation. And
Yes.
I've had some people's, layer 3 cards and just allow yourself to travel into whatever image comes from layering those 3 cards. And I've had people say, they've had interesting dreams come from that. They've had a sort of an increase in their own intuitions and so forth. So it sort of unlocks certain things for people. If it, obviously not everything is for everybody, but if you might find it's for you, that's some of the ways in
Uh,
which it works. And then, of course, you can use this together with the transparent tarot.
um, yeah, you have to explain me why, how, but first, um, you have always this threesome structure. This is supposed to equal a mandala. Is this right? Because there's
Well, it
always
does if you line them up in. It does if you line them up. Yes. So it creates a mandala effect, which is most effective when you actually overlay the numbers so that they are lined up
yeah,
in the way that they're designed
yeah.
to.
Sorry,
to
I'm playing around here because
I
I'm
know, and that's totally
fascinated.
fine. But the mandala effect is not quite as effective when it's not symmetrical.
So you are
And you
supposed
can
to,
you can put any number of cards down. I tend to use 3 because 3 is a really nice number, and obviously it's designed with this. I'm pointing at the screen in a way that nobody can see, but it's designed with, as you can see, the triple structure of most of the cards. Some of them have an intentional, slightly different one.
mm,
And for this, the geometry of how the cards interrelate was much more complex. So there's various circles of different sizes, there's various stars of different numbers of points, and again, tracing paper and a great deal of work in pencil before things got put down in pen went into that.
I think that's people what they are saying in the comments here as well. How much love you put into these cards, that really shows,
Oh,
and
thank you.
it is obviously a very complicated system, which I have to get into myself. But I can totally understand how you get into these kind of dreamy worlds, basically, with this deck.
It's not a deeply complex system, but it is a system and it is new. So once you're sort of familiar with how the elements interact and how the different directions interact, which is all based, it's not made up. It comes from Western mystery tradition
Mhm.
stuff. You just make it your own. Don't feel tied to how you think it maybe is meant to work. Just you start to come up with your own particular associations for all of these symbols, and then it's your tool.
Mm.
So you'll come up with your own way of
In
of using it.
But obviously, in the book, you give always which direction it is. You tell
Mhm.
people what the name of the card is, and you obviously will give some indication what the card is supposed to mean if you just draw it by
Yeah,
itself.
it's a starting point. It's
Yeah,
very much only meant to be a starting point from which you will build your own symbolic vocabulary, because all of us are walking symbolic dictionaries ourselves from our life experiences, and we build up our own set of meanings for things on a personal level as well as a universal level.
yeah.
So this is only meant to be a starting point, and then I hope that people will build from there. I was like, either the book for this has to be fairly simple and small, or it's an entire set of encyclopedia, and that's just not practical to include with an oracle deck. So, uh,
Well, I
yeah,
must confess,
I'm
while
experimenting.
you're talking, I really feel like playing around with them, and I probably wouldn't bother to look into a book, just get my intuition run wild when I get these cards. Um,
Always a good way to start with any deck, I think.
so Christopher says it is complex but not complicated. I think this is kind of what you were saying, and people really like the idea of the cards. You have to show me how I would use it with a transparent tarot because they are different shapes.
Sure, they are. Well, why not have a play?
Hmm.
Um, you'll work it out. I'm sure it's not.
It confuses me. I don't. That's
But
my.
you'll see they are different shapes, but they're a similar size. So people have said, the transparent oracle is huge, it's so large. But that actually means if you line up the four corners of the transparent tarot with the circle, you'll see that the images actually overlay quite well.
Yeah, that's true. They're not totally adjusted, but you can let them work together. The only thing I find difficult is the shuffling with these.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. They are enormous. You just have to find
A grip.
different ways of,
Yeah.
unless you've got huge man hands like I have. Uh, and even then, so there's been occasions where I've shuffled and they just get. I would suggest probably spreading them out over a wide surface and yeah,
Yeah,
doing
the,
your
the
thing.
this the surface I have here is
Yeah,
included
it's
in
not.
your set. It's quite
Yeah.
shiny. The one for the transparent tarot is more linen-esque, and this is more silky here, or satin,
Hmm.
I would say. Um, and I think this is working quite well. You need to have a white
You do.
surface,
You
I
need
think.
to have a way, and
Yeah,
I would highly recommend that people use, if not the cloths that come with the deck, some other soft surface. Do not use them on a hard surface so much; they will scratch, and you will start to lose some of the effect of the transparency as scratches build up over time. So,
yes,
generally speaking, I would use a soft surface and keep them wrapped in a
yeah.
soft cloth.
So Um, I wonder, people are just enthusing about the deck, but nobody asks any questions, I think. They're just really,
Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask?
yeah,
All
if there are any questions, please ask. But I think uh, it is really an intuitive deck. I'm not really bothered also to know right now about why the South has this or that. It's just really um, working on my imagination when I look at this, and
Good,
really,
good. Yeah. The book
um,
is there if you want it or
yeah,
need it at any point, but it's by no means like essential. If you want to understand the system, it's there.
yeah,
I think a really good way of starting with any deck is to play with it first and get to know it on a personal level first and form your own relationship with it, and then go back and say, okay, well, what were they thinking when they made this?
you are also saying in your book then you can use it for storytelling.
Yeah.
Um, People in the Geheimnisakademie, which is also part of this YouTube show here, they are much into storytelling. So how would you use this deck for storytelling?
Um, you like you would when if you're doing any kind of divination or anything for anybody. Generally speaking, we're telling a story,
That's true.
you know.
Uh,
But if you're looking for particular inspiration, draw three cards. You can be like, okay, one is going to be my character, one is my situation, one is a thing that happens to them, and then take it from there and repeat as many times as you like. There's a spread in the book for the transparent tarot that is specifically designed for this kind of brainstorming of story
mhm.
for writers. Um, but I think if you play with it enough, it will unlock things and unlock inspirations and because it has landscapes, it has animals, it has characters, it has different personalities. It suggests story, but it's not spoon feeding you story. It's simply unlocking your own creativity.
I
That's the
really
that's the idea.
Yeah, it's so lovely. Um, Christopher wants to know whether you wrote the book parallel to creating the deck, or did you just receive the images first and then wrote about them?
Always, it's images first. And then it's this requisite that you have to write books to make sense of things for people. So that's always the thing I'm doing, crying before the deadline. The artwork always comes first. I'm very I enjoy having written things. I do not necessarily enjoy the process of writing things. And I know that my writing is good. That's fine, but it's just the joyful part is the creating the artwork, and that's where the inspiration comes. So yeah, that's always the order of things with these decks.
Mhm.
Um, in terms of books, I want to take you back to something you said right at the beginning, which we didn't quite get a chance to talk about. Because you said, "Oh, Shakespeare and astrology." Because I don't know whether you know, I wrote a book on the magic of Shakespeare too,
No, I
that
did
people might
not.
be
Did
interested. Yeah,
you?
so there's a book. So there's a book called "So Potent Art: The Magic of Shakespeare," which
So
talks
potent
about
are.
the hermetic occult philosophy of Shakespeare's time, and how that's reflected in the works, and supernatural occurrences, and all of that in there.
Uh-huh.
So if anybody's interested in that, that's out there too.
Yeah, I'm going to read this because this is something which really interests me. I don't know the author of the book, but I read a book about Shakespeare, how every play is based on some astrolo astrological constellation. Like Romeo and Juliet is a Gemini play, and King
Okay.
Lear, I think, was a Saturn play or something like this. And I could really understand
Yeah.
this with Romeo and Juliet because everything goes so quickly, and there's Mercutio
I mean,
there. And
that's obviously somebody's like theory where they have superimposed that possibility onto the plays, and that's always very interesting and can unlock sort of new meanings and stuff. But there's an awful lot that is inherent
hmm
in the plays,
hmm
alchemy, planetary symbolism, elemental symbolism, and so forth, that when you understand that as a language can help us to understand the plays, and the characters
so what's
better.
there in Richard III?
Ha ha ha! That's a really good question. Richard III is one of the sort of the history slash. It's sort of a history, but it's definitely sort of political propaganda. Is less steeped in overtly magical things. But one of the really interesting things in terms of magical content in Richard III, I find, is the ghosts that appear in his tent towards the end. You have various different types of ghosts in Shakespeare. I find this really, really interesting. You have ghosts that are definitely external manifestations that we are meant to believe are real and existing on that stage. For example, in Hamlet, the ghost of Hamlet's father appears and is witnessed by Horatio, who is established as being the most grounded, the most rational, the most logical. So we know that if Horatio has seen that ghost and various other people unconnected to Hamlet's father have seen this ghost, we know that we are meant to believe, for the purposes of that play, and for that play to make sense, that that ghost is, at least initially, real. And Richard III does a similar thing, because we follow this journey with Richard where he's denying his conscience throughout and bumping off various people. And then he gains the crown, and it does not do what he hopes it will do. He's a very wounded individual, emotionally, physically, in a lot of pain. So he's now king. He's about to face this great battle. And in his tent the night before that battle appear all the ghosts of the people he's killed through his life. And they come, and they have their own personal message to him, and they all end with despair and die. And now we could believe that this is Richard's conscience manifesting as ghosts. But in the full version of the play, we then basically cut to Richmond, his rival's tent, where these same ghosts appear. So it's the ghosts of the people that Richard has killed. So why would they appear to Richmond? To wish Richmond victory in battle against Richard. So when we as audience see that, we know that those ghosts are meant to be real.
Mm.
Um, and so that's one of the ways that when you look at the history of the portrayal of ghosts on stage, and particularly through Shakespeare's plays, the difference is we have a ghost in Julius Caesar who nobody else sees,
Mm.
um, that appears to Brutus, is like, okay, that one we can see that is a conscience. So we can go into depth in that. I mean, the one in Hamlet is very interesting because that is like a manifestation of an age before, this ghost that has come from purgatory, a Catholic concept, whilst the Catholic age is past at that point and we're in the Protestant age. I could go on about it all day.
I think I have to
Um,
invite you again, basically.
I mean, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, people are really excited about the book in the commentary. Oh, Rory is here, by the way, as well, and he says hi
Yes,
to you.
hello. Yes.
Omens, alchemy, and occult wisdom, Pascal found out in the works of the great bard. So potent art. I'm sure people will order it now. I'm going to order it. It sounds really exciting. Um,
Yes, make sure that, yes, it's still available online, but that particular edition is basically has stopped being produced. So I don't know how many copies there are out there. So grab yourself a copy before the cost goes up
we will
too
share
much.
it in our community if nothing helps, if there's no longer any copies. But yeah, interesting. So to come full circle, how did
Mhm.
Shakespeare influence your tarot art? Did he influence your tarot art?
Not yet.
The next deck is going to appear.
Well, we'll see. What's interesting, I've not really had time to create tarot since I've gone back into acting. So all of the tarot decks that I've made, yes, I've written a couple of books since, but all of the tarot decks that I've made, because it's an incredibly long process, creating all these pieces of artwork, were created in that gap when I actually thought I'd never go back into acting again. Um, and I don't know what I can say really. There's certainly the possibilities of something in process soon.
I'm
We
very
shall see.
curious about this. Um,
It's very gestative at the moment, and I'm reluctant to talk about it. But I'm in talks with one publisher about something, and I have some plans for something else that are bubbling away, and certainly bound to bubble over into some sort of reality soon. But it's a long way off because it's all going to be a lot of work. So, but yeah,
uh, whatever it will
maybe.
be, it will be very creative, I'm sure. And
Thank
uh,
you.
I'm just very happy to have these decks here. And as far as I can see from the comments, people are really up to get the deck themselves as well. I really would
Oh,
have to
thank you.
say to everybody watching, get it, get both, because they are really very unique and special. And uh, I definitely wouldn't use them so much for my consultations, but for my personal spiritual work, I think they are really, really lovely and perfect. Um,
I think a lot of people say thank you. A lot of people say that about the transparent oracle in particular. I don't think they use them very much for other people, but they use them for themselves a lot. Whereas the transparent tarot, a lot of people use for readings for,
yeah,
for
yeah,
others.
yeah. I know some people who do use it for tarot readings as well, but for me, it's more. Yeah, this it gets very personal when I look at these.
Mm.
I like it a lot.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, I think we should come to an end soonish because we already have been chatting for an hour. Um, yes.
That was like I said, you would wind me up and let me go, and I just thought, oh.
Yes,
But it's been lovely to talk with you and see you again.
yes.
Thank you for inviting me.
And please, once you have more time, perhaps around the dark days during.
November. I'm
Yes.
horribly free currently in November, so I
Okay.
will be looking to fill that time. If anybody's interested, it was certainly my intention today to put some dates in the diary for Transparent Tarot and Transparent Oracle workshops so that I could advertise them right now. I did not do that. However, I will be arranging that and announcing that soon. So I will probably have that will probably be October. And then I'm very much free to come and talk in November unless something
Yes,
happens.
please. Let's
So
let's do
that
this.
would be lovely.
In the show notes, I put your homepage, so I guess you
Oh,
can
great.
be updated via the homepage, or should people more go to your Instagram or
Yeah, it'll all of it will be all over all of it. So
okay.
yeah,
So
please feel free to follow me on Instagram. It's just at Emily Carding. Um, I've never really quite worked out mailing lists, but everything goes on Instagram. And then my website is just emilycarding.com. So come find me. And I'm always happy to chat and be in touch with everyone. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for being here with me. And I will actually talk to John. You mentioned him a few times, John Matthew, on Wednesday. I'm really
Well,
looking.
give him my love because, yes, he's been a huge influence on my work
Yeah,
over the years.
I mean, he
Yeah.
is the master of tarot decks, isn't he? The king of tarot decks.
So many tarot and Arthurian legends. So get him talking on that subject, and he'll be
And
fascinating. Sure.
and I just read that Christopher, whom I'm working with in the Geheimnis Academy, he already unboxed your she deck. I didn't know this. So somewhere this deck is already in our community, and
Great.
everybody who wants to get to know more about this deck should look for this episode. Yes.
And if anybody's interested in buying original art from any of the decks, drop me a line because, yeah, in between acting jobs, I never did the day job thing. I don't like have a day job, so it's like, oh, there's a bit of a gap between acting jobs. Anybody want to buy a painting? Um, so yeah, just drop me a line.
Yeah, I think people will do that. Um, some person appeared now too late. She's upset and she asks whether you are the sister of Annie Lennox.
Not as far as I know, but I do get that a lot, and it's a
I
very
can
flattering
imagine.
comparison. Thank you.
Yeah, I
I
thought
don't
so.
even have the very, I mean, it's quite short, but I didn't have the very, very cropped hair that I have had in the past. But
Good. Anyway, thank you very much for being with me today. I think the community appreciated this a lot, and you can be sure to be invited again. And
thank
you
you.
said you have not been to Germany yet in person.
Not with Richard III.
Uh-huh.
I was there. I was there with the prequel, Richard II.
Oh, you did Richard the Second as
A
well.
few years ago with the full cast production of Richard II. I've been to Germany, but I guess I haven't been invited. I just kind of go where I'm invited. I'm not very good at just being. So yeah, we'll have to organise that. We'll have to get Richard III to Germany next year for the 10-year anniversary.
Yes, that would be the what anniversary of your
The
play?
10-year anniversary of Richard III, a one-person
Oh,
show.
yeah. Let's see
Mm,
what we can do for getting you here. That would be very
let's give it a
inspiring.
go. Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Christopher says that it would be a good episode for history of the occult. I guess he thinks about Shakespeare.
The
We have a
Shakespeare and the occult.
we have
Mm,
a podcast on history of the occult here.
good
Let's
idea.
get into that. Okay, Emily. So I'm really thrilled. I think everybody is thrilled. Thank you for your time. I know that you need to settle down after your busy month or weeks, even. And
Yeah, and I have a 10 p.m. because it's with a guy in the States. So I have a 10 p.m. horror podcast coming up. So I need to make it. My goth spring has just arrived home after being off gallivanting with their boyfriend's metal band for weeks. We barely see each other these days. So I'm going to sort us out some food and hope to talk to you again soon. But it's been a real joy, and thank you everybody who's been watching and listening.
this
And
is
yeah, any questions, anybody just drop me a line.
I had just have the question, where is this on tonight? Your talk about your horror
I
movie?
think we're just recording it tonight.
Ah, okay, you're
From
just recording it.
I don't think it's live, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
It's for a channel called Horror Heathen
Okay. Horror
on
heathen.
YouTube.
Okay. I will look it up. It sounds
Okay. I don't
Interesting.
know. I know people message me and say, "Will you be on this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." We'll see. We'll see. Um, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody who was watching today. Please follow Emily. She's really worthwhile to be followed. And get her decks. And we meet again, dear Emily. Thank you very much for your time.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.